Good morning, Eastlake Online. Welcome to Is This How We Conversation? My name is Megan, and this is my friend.
I'm Kylie.
Hello. This is our final episode of Is This How We Conversation? It has been just a little bit over a year of doing these pre-service shows. Kylie and I think, started just the two of us full-time about a year ago now.
Yeah, probably.
And it has been so much fun and just a joy and a pleasure to get to interact with you all through the chat and get to play games with you every Sunday. We are sad it's ending, but know that it's the right time.
Yes.
It's feeling like it's gonna lose its power, and I think we're ending at the height. So just thank you so much for all of your guesses and for all of your participation and for joining us.
Being here with, Brent's
trying to be our hype man.
Yeah. Thanks for being here every Sunday. It's been so fun, and the fact that we're having to have this show come to a close is actually really promising that we're moving in the direction that we need to be moving, but we are sad.
Yeah.
Megan and I are still going to be gathering on Sundays. It's just the two of us bantering back and forth and writing trivia for each other. So
yeah, it'll be great.
It'll be great.
So today, for our final game, we are going to be playing Name the TV Show based on the series finale. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different series finale plot lines, and we are going to try and guess which series finale it is, which TV show it was.
We don't know the answers.
We don't.
Gary has the answers.
Gary has the answers. He just gave me the nod. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, I'll read the first.
Okay. You got it.
I'll read the first one. This show ended with its main character on a hillside, sitting in a lotus position, perhaps coming up with the idea for perhaps the greatest commercial of all time. Bonus points if you can name the ad campaign. I know what it is, Megan.
I know what it is as well, but I don't know the ad campaign.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that it is Mad Men.
I know also that it is Mad Men.
And I know that it is the I Want to Buy the World a Coke ad campaign. If I could buy the world Coke. Buy the world Coke.
I haven't actually seen the series finale.
What? Did you watch the show?
I watched the show until, not the whole thing, but
it got it took a turn. It took a weird
lots
turn.
Of smoking, Gary.
For a season. And then it kind of came back around a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it didn't.
Yeah.
But
so
it was great.
Mad Men, correct?
I didn't even give you guys.
Campaign, correct?
I want to buy the world of Coke or buy the world of Coke. Okay.
So Kylie is correct, which doesn't surprise me since your husband is obsessed with that show.
He really is.
It is one of the shows on here because Brent Johnson wrote this. All right, I'll do the next one. I want to pause and see if anyone else can get it. So we have a couple.
Oh yeah.
Rod and Brienne are in the chat with us. So.
Hi. Oh, Christy.
Okay, so this show ended when its protagonist moved away from Seattle and had to say goodbye to his radio show and his popular catchphrase, "I'm listening." I know it. Oh, and Bethany. Hi, Bethany.
I think that I do simply because of the location, but I never watched the show that I'm thinking of, even though Brent really, really loved it.
Oh, my mic isn't working very well.
Oh no. Okay, I'll read some of the questions or lean closer. Okay, so this show ended with its protagonist moving away from Seattle, and he had to say goodbye to his radio show and his popular catchphrase, "I'm listening."
Yes, Frasier, everyone.
Good job.
Eric, where you at? Indeed. Eric loves Frasier. It's his favorite show.
Eric.
It is Frasier. Correct, everyone.
Okay.
Can you hear me better?
Here's the next one. Oh, can you hear Megan now? Give us a woot woot.
Just let us know.
Hear Megan better. Okay, this show ended with a Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech and one final meal in apartment 4A.
I know what this one is too. I haven't seen it though.
Me too. Wait, do I?
I don't know. I can't read your mind, so I don't know. I do know what it is, even though I haven't seen this episode. All right, Bethany said woot, so she can hear me.
Okay, good.
I moved my mic pack out.
Okay, this show ended with a Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech and one final meal in apartment 4A.
Yes, Brienne, Big Bang Theory.
Okay,
Correct,
I
right,
totally
Gary?
got it wrong. I thought it was Sex and the City.
No. Nobel Peace Prize. Sheldon and Amy win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, okay, I've never seen that show ever.
Oh, it's so good.
I've never seen Sex and
you
the City
would
either,
actually
but I
probably
just-
like Big Bang Theory.
I
I think it's your kind of humor.
I just might.
Yeah.
Okay, I should watch it. Okay,
Is it my turn again?
I think so.
Okay. This show ended in a courtroom trial where a group of friends were charged for violating a Good Samaritan law. During the trial, several character witnesses come forward detailing their often self-centered acts. I have no idea.
This show ended in a courtroom trial where a group of friends were charged for violating a Good Samaritan law. During the trial, several character witnesses come forward detailing their often self-centered acts. Oh, this is.
Wait, don't say it.
Hold on. Okay. I know which one. I know what this is.
You know what it is?
Yes, it is. Christy got it right. It's Seinfeld.
Oh, it's Seinfeld.
Good job. I forgot. They're all sitting in like a cell, like a prison, a jail cell together at the very end. It's so funny.
I didn't remember. I don't think I've ever seen the end of it.
Yeah, it's so.
That
It's
makes sense, though.
very funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's very.
That
funny.
makes so much sense.
Okay, this is the next one. This show ended with flash forwards to a future timeline where two of its characters are asked to run for governor of Indiana.
Is it?
Asked to run for governor of Indiana.
I feel like I have an idea. I don't know for sure, but I have an idea. Oh, my stream is.
I think I
buffering.
have an idea as well. I think I know what it is. I
just
think
mine.
is it a certain one with Amy Poehler that you're thinking of? Okay, I think so too. I've never watched the whole thing, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've never watched really the whole thing.
Parks
either.
and Rec. The Pectals
Is
say
it-
Parks and Rec.
I think it's Parks and Rec. Also, Gary
I think
is
I got
nodding.
a small nod from Gary.
Yeah. So Parks
Good
and
job,
Rec. It
Pectals.
is.
Look at all your points. Well done. Okay. We've got
We only have two more.
two
Okay,
left.
if we have to fill time at the end, everybody start thinking about your favorite game that we played this year.
Okay. I like it. I know. I started writing trivia. Brent thought of this game because he's brilliant and it's fun. And this is the end. And this is our season finale, series finale. I started writing trivia. Okay. Then maybe I should. I'll bring up my game too. That's what we'll do.
Okay.
Okay. So Gary said we still have time. So we'll finish this and then I'll have to creatively, because it's not finished, but it's creative. Okay. The next one is, this show ended with an interview panel 1 year after the documentary about their workplace environment had concluded. What?
I know what it is. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Don't you know what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
This show ended with an interview panel.
Yes,
1 year
George.
after
It is The Office.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, it is. What's really funny about The Office is I watched it like it was, the most exciting thing that happened in my week for years. And then Michael Scott left and I didn't watch like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And then I watched the end.
Yeah.
It was
Okay,
great.
final of the series finals, and then I actually really want to know what your guys' favorite game was. If you know what it was,
Yeah, drop it in the
just for
comments.
like intrigue and nostalgia. So this show ended with 6 friends leaving the key on the counter of their purple apartment and heading out for one final cup of coffee together.
Oh.
Yes, it is Friends.
Friends, George, was jumping the shark. Okay, do you know why people say jump the shark? I want to hear. If you guys know why people refer to things as jumping the shark, I want to hear it because I learned that.
Oh, I
George
did
says
not know.
happy days. That's
Not
awesome.
Happy Days.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, it is from Jumping the Shark. You're right.
Oh, it's from
George,
Happy
you're
Days?
brilliant. It's when Fonzie he actually like jumped
on
shark.
the shark?
Yeah, and
Wow.
it changed the route of they took it into kind of this different realm of show. Okay.
All right, I want to know what's been your favorite game we've played this year, everyone. If you have one. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm
While
trying
you
to
guys
think
are
mine.
thinking. Oh yeah, what's your favorite?
When we played Pictionary, because
That
you
was pretty
got ridiculously excited.
I can't zip it. I have zero chill with categories, Pictionary.
You like rose up out of your
Baldur.
seat.
And I keep
And I was
shouting
like,
the same answer
what is
over
happening?
and over when I think that it's the right one.
What was your favorite?
I always really liked that you were good at the pop culture ones because
Okay.
I could just ride your train. Like anything pop culture, I was just like, I'm gonna go with what Megan says because she's got this down.
Okay, Brienne said the boy band lyric.
You guys liked the palindrome
Pectals
day?
like the palindrome game.
That was pretty
Yeah,
fun.
palindrome day was good.
That
for
was
sure.
pretty fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed writing trivia, and what's interesting is we get to have a trivia night
Yes.
soon
Yes,
in the back
we do.
alley. That information will drop sometime soon, but
Yeah.
we're looking forward to that.
Super fun. Anybody
Going
else?
back to, I'm going to meet all of you in person someday.
That's so exciting, George. Make sure you come and introduce
Yay,
yourself.
We would love it. That'll be so fun, George. So keep dropping your favorite games because I need to like sift through all the ones that we've done. It would be fun to eventually go back and
Gary,
watch
how
these.
much
I've
time
never
do we have?
watched any of ours.
He's not here.
Okay, so this is the game that I came up with, and I'm going to try to
Okay.
like off the cuff
Remember
make
it?
up some of it. But I had written some trivia where all of the answers had the word by in them. So it wasn't necessarily spelled
like
B-Y-E, but you would say the word by in the
that
answer.
trivia. Okay.
So
Do you remember them?
I don't.
I'm about
gonna-
to be impressed.
I'm gonna try. I'm probably going to make up some questions as we're going because I reverse did it. I came up with all of these words and then reversed it.
Got it.
So the first one is what is the old woman in The Wizard of Oz riding down the road when the tornado comes?
A bicycle.
A bicycle. You got it. Okay, so that's a good example. Okay. This is made up of good bacteria, bad bacteria, and found in our gut. You know who would know this is Elise Jackson. She's so brilliant with this kind of stuff.
Is it a biome?
Oh, yeah, that's in it.
Oh. Is it a
In your gut.
like intestinal biome?
Microbiome.
Microbiome.
Okay, this is
Sorry, I'm not letting you guys
when you have an experience with an extreme temperature and parts of your extremities turn purple and fall off. Because I am very articulate and wise with words when I don't have them written down, as you're learning right now.
Let's see. I'm gonna let you guys guess that one. Okay, say it again.
My dad says bile.
Yeah. He said biome. Bile.
Oh, did he say? Oh,
no,
yeah.
some Pectel said biome. Okay, wait.
Biome.
When your extremities get super duper cold and then freeze and potentially have to be removed. Right? That's what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's
I mean,
that
I
called?
paraphrased. Frostbite.
It's called frostbite.
Bite. I got it.
Bite.
I was trying to think like
I have
by,
one
like
more,
starting
I
with by,
think.
but no.
Oh yeah, no. I tried to be creative and get it all kinds of in there.
Yeah.
Let me see. I thought I had one more. One more to say goodbye. Possibly not. Okay, maybe I don't. You guys,
That's all right.
we've really loved
How much more
being
time do
here
we have
with you.
to, Gary? 30 seconds. Friends, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for all of everything again. Kylie and I have loved this time with you. It has been a joy and a privilege to be able to host this for you guys every
It's felt
morning.
like we've gotten to see you when we can't see you.
it
So
has.
thank you for being here with us every Sunday, and hopefully we get to see your actual faces very soon.
Yes.
We are continuing our series, You're Not That Far, and Brent will take it away from here. Bye,
Yeah.
guys.
Bye, everyone.
Welcome to Eastlake, everybody. My name is Elise. Thank you for checking out this evolving, ever-evolving, and unique way of doing church. We're glad that you made church part of your weekend, whether you're watching from home or you're here in hard chairs in our theater. If you're watching this in person and don't currently fall into the fully vaxxed category, according to guidelines from our governor, please keep your mask on while in the theater. If you're watching this from home, you do you. If you're new to Eastlake, you picked a great day to check us out. Just to give you a glimpse into what we care about most, we're trying to be the best option for people who aren't typically into church. We don't care what you look like, who you vote for, or whether you've ordered a Shirley Temple drink as a fully grown adult. We're just glad you're here. If you are new, we'd love for you to let us know by filling out a Connect card or letting us know in our super trendy app. For every first-time guest, either online or here in person, we will be donating $20 for Young Life Capernaum, a Young Life experience for teens with disabilities. If you're a first-time guest, let us know so we know how many zeros to put on the end of the check. If you're looking to connect in community with other Eastlakers this season, look no further than the Eastlake Community Marketplace. There you'll find one-time events, ongoing groups, and Wear Love volunteer opportunities, like Pub Theology, happening this Wednesday just down the road at Tommy's Tap House. Join the group and listen to a podcast related to God, the church, or theology in general, and come ready to discuss over Parmesan fries and an ice-cold IPA. For more info, write Pub Theology on your Connect card. This doesn't interest you? Head on over to Marketplace to find more places to connect. Thanks for coming to week 3 of our series, You're Not That Far, a series on the kingdom. But before we start, here's the best thing we saw on the internet this week.
So today was a hard one, all right? I'm pushed to the brink here. I'm at the end of my rope, and I can't talk. I'm torn because I'm all out of faith. This is how I feel. I'm cold and I'm ashamed lying naked on the floor right now. Metaphorically speaking, obviously. I'm clearly sitting in a chair and wearing a shirt, at least. But today at circa 9:45 a.m., one of my coworkers waltzed in to our communal break room and reheated fish in the microwave, made the whole floor smell like a mermaid's gym bag all day. What are you doing at 9:45 antemeridium that you have just got to have your leftover fish? What, you need the omega-3s? And I know it was 9:45 because that's when I began to smell it. It could have been earlier, possibly. What sort of deviant, felonious. Luckily, I still have my mask, all right? So they're lifting these mandates, but you keep these masks, babies, okay? You're gonna need them. For me, it's the disrespect and the temerity.
Watch me burn, gonna live my life, mark these words, cause I'm whole, whole. Here's where I'm stronger, cause home's where this heart belongs.
Well, good morning and welcome to Eastlake. And for those of you watching online or on replay, we're so glad that you tuned in to be a part of this as well. For those of you in person, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are on part 3 of a series we're calling You're Not That Far. It's a series on kind of like, it's a study through the Gospel of Mark, but if I called it the Gospel of Mark, nobody would show up or download. So we called it You're Not Far, and we did a picture of Country America because there's no better feeling than driving from Spokane to Tri-Cities, seeing the Country America and being like, we're almost home. The story goes with Mark's version of the Jesus story. Jesus is approached one day by a religious leader who asks him, what does it take to be near to God, or what does God want from us? And Jesus' response was, well, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And then the second, really, there's another commandment, and it's just like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And then this man responds with, yep, those are really, really good, Jesus. I affirm that decision or that statement. And then Jesus looks at him and he goes, yeah, and you're not that far from the kingdom. And there's a part of it is like, what is he missing? What is he trying to say? Or is it a positional of like, is there something new, something here? You are not far from the kingdom of heaven. What does that mean? What is all entailed in that? That's been kind of the purpose of the series. For those of you who have missed it, there's you can download the first 2 talks and catch up in the conversation. Today we're going to talk about something that you already know about, but we're going to talk about it anyways because I think it's important. It comes up in this situation as we'll see in this section of reading today. And the thing that you already know about that we're going to talk about anyways is the gravitational pull of religion is always behavioral conformity. All right? And this is not exclusive to Christianity. This is religion as a whole. But if you're a part of any sort of religion, there is going to be an expectation that eventually you will begin to change your behavior to look a little bit more like us. And I had this classic thing this morning. This morning before our first service, I ran into somebody I used to work with over 20 years ago. One of my first jobs that I had was I was bussing tables and serving tables at the Red Lion in Pasco, which is it was DoubleTree and now it's Red Lion. But anyways, there was a server there, and I had worked with her. And her name, it doesn't matter what her name was, but I saw her walking into Kagan's this morning, and she didn't have her mask on, so I could make out her face. And I said, hey, Liz, I'll just give it away, it's Liz. Anyways, it's Liz, hey, Liz, it's me. And I realized I had my mask on because I was out doing stuff, and I lowered it down. I go, it's me, Brent. And she goes, oh, Brent, like the gray hair threw me off. And I was like, that's cruel and unusual punishment, but okay, whatever. And I said, yeah. And so I remember we were, when we worked together, we were so different, so different. They're the only thing in life that I grew up in church. She grew up very not church, very, other categories, whatever you want to fill in the blank with that. The only thing we had in common was we both got a paycheck from Red Lion. That was the only thing in life that we had in common at that point. Not that we didn't like each other, but that was it. And so when seeing her was like, there's like flood of memories and all this kind of stuff. And so I said, well, what are you doing now? She said, I work out at Hanford and I'm doing this. I said, that's great. She says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm a pastor at a church. And I just, I looked, we're all setting up the stuff. I'm like, this is the church. It starts in 10 minutes. Whatever. You're getting coffee. You're already here. Anyway, I didn't pressure her in that way. I said, I don't want to interrupt. And she asked me this question. She goes, well, tell me about your church. What's it about? And I used the favorite tagline that we always use, right? We're trying to be a church for people who don't typically like church. And her response is the same response that I get every time I say that tagline. Well, I don't like church. Every time that's the response. Well, I don't like church. And I say, hey, match made in heaven. I don't want to interrupt your coffee, though. Totally get it if you want to leave. And then and she did. So I know she's not here, so that's fine, which is great. But I thought in that moment, okay, say Liz decides to walk down into our church and kind of experience a Sunday. Would she hate it? I don't think she would. That's kind of our approach. We'd be like, hey, I really doubt you'll hate it. And then would we follow through on our promise that there is no countdown, that you can, you don't have to believe or do things like we do or whatever for any sort of like you have 6 months to figure this out? Because that's typically what happens with churches. Hey, we're so glad you're here, but we are going to need you to start looking like us and acting like us at some point, right? And that's been the thing, and I hope that would not be true for Liz, but that's been the thing that perhaps, you watching at home or whatever, or you here or whatever, that was your reason for why you got out for a while. And maybe you're back, or maybe you're just sticking your toe in, or I don't know why you're watching this, but at some point, there's been something that has been like so off-putting about this behavioral conformity, the expectations placed on that, and it varies depending on the religion sometimes, or depending on the church and the typical expression of that religion in that moment, but there is a sense in which you be here long enough, there's going to be expectations for you to kind of do things the way that we do them. And that is just true for all religion. And it's true across time. It's not a modern day phenomenon. It happened when Jesus was doing his thing, because Mark records for us this time where questions begin to come out about Jesus with surrounded by some of the religious leaders of the day, asking questions like, why doesn't he eat with us? Why don't his followers practice fasting like we do, or pray like we do, or not dine with those people like we do? There's this expectation of religious conformity that came out, and for a while maybe you were outside of the bubble, and when you were outside of the bubble, you realized how limiting and how broken that whole system was, and that's been the thing that's kind of kept you out of religion. I totally understand it, and I totally get it, and luckily for us, there's a moment when I think Jesus addresses this thing head on and says to a group of people who are obsessed with religious conformity or adherence, behavioral conformity, and looks at them and says, listen, just in case this isn't clear, I want to tell you something about something that you consider to be very incredibly sacred. For them, Sabbath, right? This Jewish idea of Sabbath was something that when they left out of Egypt, this was the fifth commandment of 10. It was right smack dab in the middle. It was the first one that didn't have to do with kind of God, but had to do with kind of his people, or it was so critical for them. This would be the differentiating factor between them and so many of the surrounding nations. They would look very similar in so many different things, but everybody would point out these Jewish people, they don't do anything on Saturdays. There's this time from sundown on Friday until sunset on Saturday that they don't work, they don't go to war. It's very sacred for them, this idea of Sabbath. And even today, listen, if you go to modern day Jerusalem today, and I went like junior year, my parents took me for a Holy Land trip. They shut things down on Saturday. And it doesn't matter that you come in and be like, well, I'm American and I don't celebrate Sabbath. That's fine. While you're here, we celebrate Sabbath, okay? So to some degree, and we're not going to force you to do prayers or anything like that, but like you're not going to get all of the things that you want to do on Saturday because that's just when we're closed. We prioritize this idea of Sabbath. And in a sense, in this scenario, as we're going to see, it was weaponized by the people who would kind of adhere to it, and they would manipulate people as a result of this. And Jesus has something to say about this. And he reminds them or points out to them, whichever kind of perspective you want to take on this, that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. This is Mark chapter 2, verse 27. The Sabbath was made for man. In other words, This was a gift from God to a group of people coming out of 400 years of slavery who for 400 years had thought to themselves, I am what I produce. My identity is wrapped up in what I'm able to produce. The only value I provide is what I can produce. I'm going to force these people to have a whole day to not produce with no expectations, so that you do not fall into the trap of thinking that you are what you produce. Now, 2,000 years later, we still fall in this trap of I am what I produce. When I feel good about myself is when my business is going well, when my bank account is big. It's all about production, production, production. And then, back in the several decades ago, these unions come in. They say, listen, if we just allow businesses to go rampant and run rampant, they're going to have all this thing. So we're going to institute this idea of a weekend, and there's only a 40-day work week. And that was a big progressive unit from them. And I don't think they did it necessarily for religious reasons, but they did it for a quality of life reasons, obviously. And that was true as much for these Israelites as it is for us today. It's a quality of life issue. This was a gift, this idea of Sabbath. And now you've made it into this thing, as we're going to see, where you've weaponized it. You use it to manipulate, you use the laws of God to manipulate the people of God. Don't forget, Sabbath was made for man. It's a gift. Not a law to be kind of used as a weapon. It was a gift, not man for the Sabbath. Now, let me illustrate it in a more practical way to kind of, I think, help drive this home a little bit. Nobody has children, so there will be somebody to play with the toys, right? This is a question of what comes first. Do we do Sabbath, and that's the most important thing, man? Or when we get these things reversed, things cause trouble. Nobody has children because they're like, we have all these toys and nobody to play with them. Let's have kids so that these toys will be played with, all right? A classic example for me too, okay? We have a swing in our backyard. I took a picture of it last night before sunset. This is a swing that we bought. This is actually the second swing because the first one got damaged because all the freaking neighbor kids come over and use it when we're not home. We have a swing. Now, we bought the swing because we have kids and we're trying to kind of help them have fun. And we want our house to be a place where the neighborhood kids come. Like, we want our kids to have a house where this is the place to hang out. We don't want them to be going else. So we prioritize that. So we look and say, what can we invest into? A basketball hoop, a hot tub, of this, or whatever. We want this to be the place that people come to enjoy, and our kids have a place to call home. So we bought it because of that. We didn't buy the swing and think, you know what the swing could use? Kids. Let's start having some kids to be able to do this. Now, are there rules to this swing? Absolutely. Like, there's liability involved, so you're not going to swing too high. There's a certain weight limit. Sorry, there's certain people that I can't go on the swing. Other people, whatever. There are rules to this thing because we want to keep it safe, and we want to keep it. You can't use it as a weapon to throw it at kids. You can't swing too high or do things. But we didn't create the rules to protect the swing. We're not like we bought this swing, but we really don't want anybody to use it because it's like we want to protect this swing. We want this swing to keep intact and we want it to last forever. We bought it so that they would play with it, but there are rules associated with it so that it's used properly so that you can get maximum amount of enjoyment and avoid unnecessary pain. That is what Jesus is saying with this idea of Sabbath, and that's what he's saying with these rules. Listen, God didn't create us so there would be somebody around to keep his rules. His rules are not the most important thing. It's the people that he created these rules for, to be able to protect them. God loves you more than he loves his own commandments. And when people get this thing reversed, people get hurt. And when the church, capital C church, when the religious leaders, when people in general reverse this, when the commandments are more important than the people get hurt. When religious leaders use the law of God to manipulate people made in the image of God, and they do over and over again in the New Testament scriptures, and it's recorded for us in all four Gospels. When religious leaders use the law of God to manipulate people made in the image of God, Jesus was quick to remind them and us that they were on the wrong side of God. And I'll show you. That's what we're going to look at today in Mark's version of the story. As I mentioned at the very beginning of the series, Mark's story is unique in that it was probably the first gospel written. Most likely it was testimony from Peter. Peter would have been one of Jesus' closest disciples. He's the one that denied him 3 times and then was restored at the end. It would go on to be basically the CEO of the early church. There would be, he would provide oversight for the expansion. He'd be one of the most vocal members, one of the most public members. And at some point, he finds himself in prison in Rome under the persecution of the Emperor Nero, and he probably knows he's about to die. And so Mark comes in because Peter, although he was gifted rhetorically and could speak well, probably grew up as a fisherman, most likely would not have been able to write or read all that well. So he incorporates and brings in Mark and says, listen, I've shared my story for the last 30 years as the the CEO of the church. This is one last time for me to kind of get my story straight about who I saw and what I knew about Jesus, the person of Jesus. So he begins the story with, this is the good news about Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. Right? That's how he kicks off his Mark's version. It's written in almost like think about it like a documentary style writing, which was, again, unique to this era of time. It doesn't seem all that unique now. We're kind of familiar with narrative and familiar with novels and whatever, but for them, this would have been so new. Peter recording, here's what I knew about the person and the teaching of Jesus. Mark, would you write this down? He begins to think through and process this type of writing. And in Matthew chapter 1, verse 15, he talks about this good news, and Jesus would go out and preach this good news. And we said at the very beginning of the series, what is this good news that Jesus is preaching? We grew up in probably a church setting where the good news of Jesus was that he died on a cross for our sins, right? And then we get to go to heaven and be with him or whatever. But that can't be the good news that Jesus is talking about because he hadn't died yet. It just doesn't work out chronologically, right? So what is this good news that Jesus is teaching? It shows up in verse 15 of chapter 1. The time has come. Jesus stands in front of a crowd. Listen, I have great news for you. Evangelion, I'm a messenger of good news. I bring awesome, incredible news that you need to hear. A time has come. Everything prior to this has pointed to this. Everything after this will point back to this. You are in a critical moment, whether you realize it or not. The time has come. The kingdom of God is near, or the kingdom of God is at hand, or it's right here. As we'll go on to see, what he's trying to say is, God has made himself known. God has come near in the form of a person, a.k.a. me. You no longer have to worry about what is God thinking of me or what is this. I'm right here. This is it. This is as close as it gets. If you want the clearest picture of God, as Paul would write in Colossians much later, the clearest, most iconic picture of who God is made himself known through the person of Jesus. And Peter believed that, which is why he says, I remember Jesus going around going, the time has come, the kingdom of God is near. Repent and believe. Here's what you do in response to that. Repent and believe. Repent meaning turn away from whatever it is that you were originally facing, go in a different direction, go towards this, and believe or have faith or rest in this belief. That Jesus is the most iconic image of God that we have. Then, after this good news is kind of talked about, he begins to go and he's recruiting his disciples to kind of follow him and kind of propagate this idea of the good news. So he recruits Peter, James, and John out of a boat, and then he's walking along, and we left off last week where he approaches a guy named Levi, who we know better as Matthew. He's in his tax collector's booth. He's been working this job where he pays Rome for the opportunity to gather taxes from his fellow countrymen, to pay their taxes in Rome, but then to keep a big portion for himself. Basically a sellout, a traitor to his own people. In taking this job, he would lose all of his rights to be able to operate in any form of government at a Jewish level. He would no longer qualify for that position. His testimony in court would no longer be valid because he would be judged as compromised. His entire family, though he gets rich, his family would pay the price for dishonor. You have a son who became a tax collector. You have a father who was a tax collector. It would be forever a blight on the reputation of those associated with him. So then Jesus is standing with Peter one day, and they see Levi in his tax collector's booth, and Peter's probably sitting next to him and goes, I know it's terrible, right? Look at this guy. I mean, can you believe the depth? We've had sinners, we've had this, but we have this whole separate category. When we would talk about bad people, we'd say, murderers, fornicators, blah, 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 and then tax collectors and sinners. It's like its own subcategory. It's terrible. Can you believe this? And then here's Peter, to his probably detriment. Here's Jesus go, Levi, follow me. You want to be a part of this whole thing? And I'm sure Peter's going, don't include him. What are you doing? Don't you understand the dishonor associated with his family is going to lend itself to us? Like our reputation is going to be damaged by this invitation. And then we're left with this question of, is Levi going to leave this 6-figure job and follow a man he just met? And surprisingly so, he says, all right, I'm in. Basically, where are we going? And Jesus says something to the effect of, and we don't get this phrase, but we think that this is what takes place because of what comes afterwards. Well, I thought we'd start at your house. Where are we going? Let's go to your house. Let's have a little party. Verse 15. This is where we dive into some verses. So Mark chapter 2, verse 15. We're going to fly through a few of them. If you want the whole thing, if you want to read them on your own, you can go to the notes page on the website if you're watching this, or eastlaketristates.com/notes, or it's part of the app too. You can download that and make that thing happen. All right. Well, Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house. Now, this is a big deal. This is a very small town. You've been through the Tri-Cities now. You know, like I can't go to Costco without seeing at least one person I know. And you walk away and you go there with friends who are from out of town, and they're like, "Do you see somebody every time you come?" You're like, "It's a small town, baby. We know everything that happens. We know, and like the gossip gets around and everything. It's not that big, right? It's still in that zone. This would be that, but on a grander scale. They would know based on how their dinners would be presented. It would be a big feast night, and there'd be all kinds of traffic to hear, and other people would be able to come and hear the interviews. They would have like dinner in a table, and then everybody from the community would come and surround them and listen to the conversation. These dinners would be big community experiences, and they would be external validations of this person. You only dined with people that you respected. A sign of I don't respect this person or don't think we're on the same level would be to reject their invitation to dinner. Jesus goes and dines with Matthew, which is a way of externally validating him as a person, which would have been awful for like everybody else involved in this thing, right? This is the moment when you figured out too, like when I like something on Twitter, sometimes it will show everybody else in the world. Brent liked this on Twitter, and I didn't know that for a while. Maybe you're today years old when you figured this out for yourself, but you figured out like I have to be careful about what I like or don't like, especially when it comes to politics and whatever else, because we don't want that message to be broadcast. This is a broadcast. This is him dining with these people going, so it looks like Jesus is in cahoots with Matthew. Now we're good, right? So he's there. He's having dinner at Levi's house. Many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. In other words, Matthew, the very first thing that he does is throws a party for all of his pagan friends. He brings his batch of people who were just like him to this moment. We used to call these Matthew parties when I was a youth pastor. We would go and like if there was a really like, rough kid that started coming to youth group or whatever, and then they're like, we're doing this whole church thing, but great, let's do a party. Let's do it at your house. You invite all your pagan buddies, your pagan kids, and we'll just bring them all in. And that was, we called them Matthew parties. Modern day or more typical example now is somebody starts coming to the East Lake and they're in the community and they're watching, they're kind of figuring things out, and they're trying to see if it really is a church. People don't typically like church and stick their toes in, but they don't want to commit. And all of a sudden, at some point, they stay around long enough to be like, I think I'm into this Jesus thing. What do I need to do? So raise a hand, sign something. What do I do? And we don't have anything like that. And so what happens is then they go, all right, I'm in. Brent, let's go golfing. Here's what I want to do. I have friends who are, pagan with a capital P, and they would never set foot in church. So what we're going to do is we're going to go golfing, and there's going to be four of us, me, you, Brent, and then two guys, and I'm not going to tell them to the fourth hole that you're a pastor. And we're gonna have them just be talking and doing their all of a sudden, and then fourth hole they'll be like, and by the way, this is Brent, he's my pastor, and all of a sudden they're like, oh man, yeah, that's really cool, man, I really like church, and it's been a while since I've been involved, and sorry for all those things I said in hole 2, and I grew up Catholic, and all this kind of like stories, all these things start coming out about this backstory, right? And it messes with their heads, and eventually they suck at golf from like hole 5 till about hole 12, and we take all their money off of them, and it's a great play. So let's do that. But anyways. That's how this works. Jesus goes to this party hosted by Matthew with all of his capital P pagan friends. When the teachers of the law, verse 16, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? Which is partly why does he do the things that we don't want to do? Like this is behavioral conformity and he's not participating. But part of it is also, why is he not eating with us? So that's a piece of it. Why in dining with them, he's not doing it with us? On hearing this, Jesus said to them, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. And he quotes, this is not original to Jesus, he quotes from Plutarch this idea of, just this is kind of how things work. But in doing so, it's a derogatory reference towards the people who are at this party, right? And the ironic piece about this is none of them seem to mind. It's the omission of somebody who says, hey man, that's kind of offensive, that doesn't show up in this text, which shows me a little bit about the way this actually happened, and then B, the nature of what it's like to be in this moment. To have people, somebody say, it's not the healthy who need the doctor, but the sick, maybe perhaps even like pointing fingers at the sick people, right? And them not even responding, be like, hey, that's kind of offensive. but then being like, no, yeah, that makes sense. I'm sick. Have you ever had a friend who embraced their place, their quote unquote place? There's somebody who attends this church, and we've talked about it so many times before. He's not going to be offended. I just should have checked with him, but I didn't, so I'm just going to go for it. Travis, if you're watching at home, there's my friend Travis. Travis Hackey. They have a family. He's very gregarious personality, very out there. One of those personalities, you either love him or you just don't like. He just rubs you the wrong way. I love him, so that's fine. We get along well, but he understands it too. He's like, embrace this. He says, our family motto is this: we cannot be embarrassed and we will not be ignored. That's the Hackey family motto, right? And he embraces the place. And people are like, I don't like that. And he's like, that's fine. I'm great. I got enough friends. It's great. I don't care. When people embrace their place, it's one thing. So this Jesus comes and he says, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. And all these sick tax collectors go, yep, cheers. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's happening in this moment. On a more serious note, this is why this is the very first step of the 12 that people go through with this addiction recovery kind of piece. It's going, listen, I can't help you if you don't understand you have a problem. If you live in denial about the fact that you have an issue, then there's really no place that we can go. It starts with this going, I'm kind of sick. I need some help, right? This is so critically important. Do you know what, this is a question for us, and do you know what hangs in the balance of your decision to admit that you need help? These people go, we're here. I mean, we get that we're in this category. Verse 17, I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. He follows up and he doubles down on this statement, and he uses this word, I have not come to kaleo, that's the Greek word there, to call out, to evoke, or to invite. I have not called to call the righteous, but sinners. And he's inviting them. It's an invitation, really, to leave something old and to embrace something brand new. This is an invitation to rethink, not to add on. A lot of times in religious conversion stuff, it's like, here's what your life is, and then if you could just add one little thing at the end and you'll be good to go. This is something different. This is an invitation to something brand new. And he's like, I want you to understand the newness involved in this. And he goes into this, he uses two illustrations. One has to do with like a wedding group thing, and we're going to skip that one. I'm just going to go to the second one just because I think it's a little bit more easy to understand. Verse 21. Let me explain what it means to embrace something new and not try and attach it to something old. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. Otherwise, the new piece will pull away from the old, making the tear worse. Now, we know nothing of this because when we get holes in our shirts, or even before they get holy, we just choose to not wear them because they don't fit anymore, they don't look good anymore, we just throw them away. Clothes are disposable, very much for us, but in this day and age, as you can imagine, not disposable. You keep them as long as you can. For some of you, like I grew up in North Idaho, my mom, we would sew we're going to keep wearing that. That's not done, and the ankles would be up here, and she's like, it's okay, it feels still good right here, right? And so we would just kind of keep this thing going for as long as we can. And Jesus is saying, listen, you can't take something new and attach it to something old. It's just not going to work. He's saying to them, these people, you have this old way of doing things, this religious sort of system in place that in its original context is good and true. The original gift of the commandment for a Sabbath was intentionally made for people coming out of a certain situation, and it was really, really healthy for them. What you've done is made it aggressively something that's weaponized against other people, and now it's become bad. You've taken something old, and you've tried to attach a little bit of, and now this we can just maybe attach this little Jesus thing to it and we'll be fine. He's like, no, this is an invitation to something completely brand new. And nobody follows it up with this other example. No one pours new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the wine will burst the skins and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. Bottom line, what he's trying to say is this, what I'm inviting you to, is something new and it's something different. Don't try and adapt it to the old. Understand the newness. The message of Jesus was new cloth, new wine. You cannot blend with what I'm telling you with what we already believe. It's incompatible. So then, what does that look like? Glad you asked. Mark goes into the next. Here's a very, very practical example or picture, a story of what this blending might look like. Verse 1, Jesus went into the synagogue and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus. So they watched him closely to see if he would heal them on the Sabbath. We've already talked about the importance of the Sabbath for them. They would have no issues with him healing him on the next day, but please do not do anything on the Sabbath. They would pride themselves on their inability to do, or their ability to not do anything on the Sabbath. They would be like, this is a point of pride for us. I didn't even leave my house. I didn't even leave my couch. We have not seen this pride of doing nothing with what they were called to do until Hanford work, really. And at that point, then, I'm just kidding. That's bad joke. But this idea of we're so proud of what we don't do, right? That this is, and then he's going on this and he's saying he knows that this is the situation. This is the context. This is the pressure point. Jesus is about to do something, and everybody knows it, but they're wondering, is he going to do it on the Sabbath, or is he going to hang on to this old system of this and watch this person with a shriveled hand who's suffering, who goes, and I'm sure this guy with the hand is going, he could do it tomorrow, but I don't even know if he's going to be around tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to get the attention. Like, now's the moment. I got to strike while the iron's hot. He's here. I'm here. I can't wait until then. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, stand up in front of everyone, which had to be awkward for everybody involved because everybody knew that the tension now was rising this way. Jesus then asked them, which is lawful? He asked them, the people observing this, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil? What's lawful? What am I allowed to do, good or evil? And essentially, he's asking the question of, why do you think God gave us rules? Why do you think these rules exist? So that we will do good or do evil. Then Jesus asked them, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? And I'm sure people in the audience are going, well, we're not saying that you need to kill him, but we're not saying that you probably shouldn't help him on this day, because again, we're about not doing anything, and that's what our pride is about. So then Jesus' question is essentially, is the law of God for the benefit of God? Who benefits from our adherence to this Sabbath law? Does God get something out of this? Is our desire to not do anything on the Sabbath a benefit to God? Does he get a kick out of it? Is it to his benefit that we approach this sort of thing? Does our decision to not do anything on the Sabbath make us more palatable to God? Does he like us more because we do this? Are we more easy to be redeemed if we do this? Are we earning points or credits or badges or something? To whose benefit is it that we don't work on the law? You have made it seem and sound like God benefits from this and gotten away from the original context of this was a gift to a slave mentality of people who thought their identity was wrapped up in what they produced. So we're going to force this on you, but now you've made this into something it isn't. And now what it is an excuse for you to do nothing, or an excuse to try and increase our likability to God. Does God like you more when you obey his rules? Or were the rules established to protect you from you? Because if all you've ever known is I am what I produce, then changing a geographic location doesn't change that. You still then go into this new thing thinking I am what I produce. I am what I produce. I don't produce it for the Egyptians anymore, but I produce it for myself. So this forced gift of stoppage was a gift for you to not destroy yourself through your own making. And now what you've done is you've weaponized it and made it something that earns the respect of God. Do you understand what you're doing? The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. We didn't buy the swing and then start to think about having kids as a result of it and protecting the swing. We bought the swing because we have kids and want them to have a place to belong and a place to invite and a place to be kids. You've missed the moment of it and you've weaponized this. How do we respond when God's laws are used to hurt the people that he loves? Here's a man with a withered hand who's suffering, who's being told by the religious leaders of the day, it's fine, he can heal you, but just not today because of Sabbath. And just see Jesus going, it's broken. That's not how this thing works. He looked around at them in anger, verse 5, and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts. And deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts because they refused to see the big picture for what it was. They looked at these things and they realized, listen, you've leveraged behavioral conformity and weaponized it and made this person the enemy should they choose to not do this. Are there rules in place? Sure, but the rules are there to kind of protect you from yourself. Are there rules in place for a swing? Of course, because I don't want kids to hurt themselves on this swing. But I make the rules because I'm trying to protect them. I don't make the rules to kind of discourage them or to penalize them or to watch them break the rules and then run out with my stick and be like, get out, kids, whatever. Get out of my yard, whatever. It's a whole different outlook. And when you treat the Sabbath in this way, when you treat God's rules in general in this way, you make the person out to be the enemy instead of the rules there to protect them from themselves in this way, deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts. Jesus said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and they began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. They saw it, they saw what he did, and they said, that's not going to work. They saw what we sometimes miss. They realized there is no way to blend the kingdom they were trying to preserve with the kingdom Jesus had come to establish. And what they were committed to doing was preserving the tradition that they had inherited. Without reflecting upon it, without finding the nuance about why these rules exist, they said, rules make us feel important. They make us feel valued, and we are good at keeping the rules. And so therefore, we feel more validated. Again, that's been our issue with the behavioral community of conformity that you had growing up in church, and you realized, I don't even know if I want to keep these rules. And then you couldn't keep the rules, and that made you not want to keep them even more. And I thought it was just I didn't want to, but now I know I can't, and so that now I don't even want to, right? And so this is what's happening. They're going, we want to keep this system in place because we're currently winning at this system, or at least we're better than most. And if we use this as an achievement to see who God blesses and doesn't bless, and who gets in and who gets out, or whatever, then we want to be close to the top of that. And our best way of doing that is to keep the system in place. And Jesus came to introduce something new, and therefore the pushback and the rejection from these people. So, a couple of takeaways for us. If you are a sinner, and I wrote this down and I thought, nobody identifies as, nobody signs up for that usually. And I should have put it in quotes, even though I think this is true for us. I think every one of us would be like, hey, I fall short of my own expectations sometimes. I'm not the dad that I want to be. I'm not the mom that I want to be. I can't control my thoughts or my tongue or both at the same time. And I'm definitely in that category. And I do think that following, and we say this, the reason that we gather together is to discover what it would look like to follow in the way of Jesus. That Jesus taught a certain way to do life. And we gather together on Sundays to be like, what is that way of life and how do we live this out in 2021? All right, that does not mean I get to do whatever I want. There are expectations. There is religious behavioral conformity, as it's true in every religion. The question is, what's the motivation for it? I believe that the reason that we should conform to behaviorally to Jesus' way and not be like, Jesus, you get me, but you have to take me as I am. Right? And with no changes and just a little small addition, he's like, no. There are rules in place to protect you from you because you don't even understand. You're so stubborn sometimes in your mindset. So if I'm a sinner, I'm invited to follow Jesus, which perhaps could lead me to be like, the things that I thought were okay and good are no longer good. There are rules that are hopefully self-imposed that I realize as a result of diving into the scripture or interpreting it in community. So I know I'm not perfect. So what is it? What kind of direction or authority do I have in my life? That would come into this. That's great. That's why these things exist. These things were forced upon the Israelites because they would have not gotten there by their own. They would have not realized I am not just the result of the production of what I can produce. It needed to be externally implied upon them. But then, as religious tradition will have it, everything kind of pulls it towards this gravitational pull. Towards now we're going to take that, we're going to weaponize it, we're going to make it our own thing, and that's when it gets broken. And number two, if you're already a follower, this is where that leads then. If you're already a follower, you are invited to yield to Jesus. You are invited to be aware of this natural trajectory or this natural way or this natural rhythm of religion to kind of codify all of these laws and to weaponize them and to create categories of us who are good at this and them who are not. And instead, invited to say yes to Jesus. You're not saying yes to a list, but to a person involved. And here is what Matthew wrote about, and I'm setting aside Mark for 1 second and going to Matthew, but I think it's important because Matthew, as I said, was the guy in the tax collector's booth who left a six-figure job with all of that stuff, who knew kind of where he stood and is invited into Jesus. And he had a chance to also write his version of the teaching of the story of Jesus. And Mark's story was probably already in existence and already out there because he'd borrowed some things from him. But he had a unique take on it. And one of the unique takes on it is in my recollection of what I remember Jesus saying and teaching about. The thing I remember most, or the thing that resonated with my psyche or personality the most, was I remember Jesus saying, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart." And Matthew probably for the first time goes, I remember that because it stood in such stark contrast to the religious systems that I was so used to, which were anything but gentle and humble in heart. But I heard him say, "Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Matthew 11:29. Rest, that idea of rest for our souls, is something that Augustine would later go on to be like, listen, in his prayer, in his opening to his confessions, in his like public version of an autobiography of my own personal prayers or whatever, he would say, our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. That we oftentimes will go through life with this restlessness of, I'm not even at peace with myself. And Matthew would say, I had that. I thought maybe money would be the solution to it, which is why I chose the profession that I chose. And I realized I wasn't restful in that moment. I needed something different. And then this guy showed up one day and he invited me to follow him. And from that point forward, I understood and I began to discipline my life according to the way that he prescribed to do it. And I, for the first time in my life, experienced rest and a gentle and humble approach to treating me as a sinner who needs a little bit of direction from some sort of an authority that is external to myself, because left unto myself, I'll make decisions that are selfish and will eventually destroy myself. And I'll be blind to it the entire time, and I don't want to live that way. So therefore, I chose to follow him. And his yoke felt easy, and it felt light. And if that version of religion stands in stark contrast to the one that you grew up with, and you're like, listen, if that was on the table when I was 16, if that was on the table when I was 25, I would have signed up for that in a heartbeat. Or if that's still on the table because now I'm 40 and I'm 50 and I've been chasing and restlessness has followed me at every point. And I thought it would be as soon as I got married. I thought it would be as soon as I got a career. I thought it would be as soon as I got everything paid off and as soon as I got in financial good position. And I'm just restless all the time. If that was there, then maybe I'm in. But you were so frustrated when it felt nothing like that. Perhaps these people, with probably good motivations, were trying to pour new wine into an old container, and to you, it simply just felt messy. Jesus did not come to tweak something old. He came to establish something brand new and something near. That the kingdom of heaven is here. There is a new king on its throne, and he's standing right in front of you. And that is good news. Let's pray. Father, our prayer is whatever our history has been with the awareness of our shortcomings, the awareness of our sinful nature, the awareness of expectations of following in the way of Jesus and changing and disciplining our lives. We understand that when it's imposed on us in certain ways and it's manipulated to our detriment to facilitate categories of us and them, like that has been a huge reason why we've walked away, and we get it. And I think Jesus says, I get it. That's a broken system. That's not what it was meant to do. I look on that with anger and distress at the brokenness and the hardening of the hearts in that way. But the invitation that you offer is something new, something different, something that feels light, that if we truly believe that your yoke is easy, your burden is light. That doesn't mean that everything is simple. I think growing into that is such a difficult thing, and there's parts of our life that we're not even aware of that are broken, that need work on. So would you guide us into that, both individually, but then my prayer is that this would be corporately a place that influences and encourages people to go down that path. So, in the same way that Peter began to reflect on it, may we begin to reflect on it this week as we go throughout our week. Give us the wisdom to know what it looks like in our life, the courage to act on it in your name. Amen. Amen. Next week, part 4 of our You're Not Far series. We'd love to have you back for that. Before I kind of turn this over, there's going to be a Connect card. We'd love to have you fill that out. You can do that in the app. That's the best way to do it. There's also a card for those of you who are here, but in the app. And while you're filling that out, we sat down with our friend, Tim Morton, for our latest installment of what we call Catching Up With. And we've done it with various different people. Tim was here earlier this morning. I don't know if he's here still, but we sat down with Tim, and he shared his story. And it's about a 12-minute video, but we combined this just like a trailer. This is about 60 seconds of it. You can watch the full thing later. But here's Catching Up with Tim Morton.
How did you hear about East Lake in the first place? I don't even know.
Well, it was interesting. We were driving around. We're getting ready for retirement in 2014. We were driving around looking for a new church.
Okay.
And so we thought, let's just find something different. And she saw the guys that were standing on the corners, and they all had their long coats on. And so she thought it was a cult. And so,
Some have said.
oh yeah. And so we kind of drove by there, and we didn't go. And then we went to South Hills, and we checked that out. And it was just too big, so we came back, and there were these guys standing there. We said, let's go just check it out. I mean, what does it hurt to check something out?
Yeah.
And from the day
Famous
we
last
walked
words,
up, it was just like, this is home. It just felt perfect. So,
Yeah.
so you're stuck with us, I don't know.
We have loved Tim and Jeannie every moment that we've had a chance to
It's
be.
been great
This
for us.
guy right here, I'm telling you guys, you don't even know. But when we took over this theater, it looked nothing like this.
No, it didn't.
And Tim and me and a handful of other
Mostly
people.
you.
No, mostly you and I, honestly,
Yeah.
did probably, 50% of the remodel work in this
Probably
building?
something like that. Yeah.
He was just in here admiring the floors, and I was like, Tim, I remember being on my hands and knees scraping these with a little grinder with you.
I remember when we were over there in the bathrooms, and we were both standing in the walls,
Yeah.
and you looked back and looked like Al Jolson with his covered white face. And that was just so crazy. And this is the way a pastor operates in a church like that.
So I didn't understand that reference. Al Jolson, I don't know who that is. And so it's been interesting because there have been a few people that laughed in the first service and a couple here, but not as many. There's like a certain age at which you're like, I get that reference, and the rest of us like, I don't know. But anyways, I just thought that was interesting. I love Tim. His story's amazing. He got involved with Gideon's in retirement and has stayed busy. He left some materials on the new book table in there. Be sure this week when you see it come up in the social media feed or in the weekly or whatever to watch the full story, because he's got an interesting story to tell, and it's good. All right, would you stand? I'm going to read a closing benediction for you and then get you on your way. Here's what it says. Protect us, Lord, from being so offended by your revelations that we curse your prophets. Guard us from being so foolishly blinded by your majesty that we lose any sense of how to speak as your witness. Rather, help our lips praise you for your glory. Amen. May that go with you this week, whatever's you're facing. If we have never met, I'll be in the lobby right after this. Would love to put a name to a face. Other than that, have a great week. See you back next week for part 4 of You're Not Far. See ya.